Hello, my dear students of class 10. This is your Shoma ma'am, and I welcome you back to the English class. Today, I am going to teach you a poem from your first flight book. The name of the poem is The Ball Poem. It is written by John Berryman. This poem is beautiful and has a very deep meaning in itself. So, why wait? Let's get started. Before starting with the poem, let me tell you something about the poet. John Berryman was born as John Smith in McAlester, Oklahoma on October 25, 1914. He received an undergraduate degree from Columbia College in 1936 and attended Cambridge University on a fellowship. From 1955 until his death in 1972, he was a professor in Minnesota. His early work was published in a volume entitled Five Young American Poets in 1940 and reflects the influences of the Irish and British poets like W. B. Yeats, W. H. Auden, Gerard Manley Hopkins, and the Americans Hart Crane and Ezra Pound. Tremendously erudite and a brilliant teacher, Berryman, in his early work, poems New Directions 1942 and The Dispossessed, was displayed great technical control in poems that remained firmly rooted in the conventions of the time. It was not until the publication of Homage to Mistress Bradstreet in 1956, when he was already in his 40s, that he won widespread recognition and acclaimed as a boldly original and innovative poet. Nevertheless, no one was prepared for the innovation that would follow, a collection that would seal Berryman's reputation as an essential American original. 77 Dream Songs, which was published in 1964 and awarded a Pulitzer Prize, unveiled the unforgettable and irrepressible alter egos Henry and Mr. Bones in a sequence of sonnet-like poems whose wrenched syntax, scrambled diction, extraordinary leaps of language and tone, and wild mixture of high lyricism and low comedy plumbed the extreme reaches of a human soul and psyche. In succeeding years, Berryman added to the sequence until there was nearly 400 collected as the Dream Songs. John Berryman was elected a Fellow of the Academy of American Poets in 1966 and served as a Chancellor from 1968 until his death. So that is John Berryman for you. So let us get started with the poem written by him, the Ball Poem. The Ball Poem. The poem starts with a boy who has lost his ball. So, what is so different? What is so curious about a ball being lost by a little boy? Let us see. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. Well, the poem opens and we find that the boy has lost his ball. And it seems that something great, something priceless has been lost from the boy. Yes, of course it is priceless, children, because it is something which is very dear to the boy, his ball. And this is the first time he has lost something. Now the poet feels that what is he to do when he has lost one of his priceless possessions which he holds very close to his heart. The poet even says that he saw it go, it here means the ball, go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. And finally, the ball is in the water. Now, if we look from the perspective of the ball, it goes merrily bouncing down. It goes joyfully, bouncing across the street and finally goes into the water. But the owner of the ball, the little boy, how is he feeling? The poet feels that the ball which is being lost by the boy is not just a toy thing. It's just not a thing. It's just not a mere ball, but it is something which has made the boy shattered. And it feels like thinking that what is the boy going to do after he has lost his ball? Now, in this stanza, we can come across many poetic devices. Now, before starting with the poem, like in full length, I want to tell you that this poem is not divided in stanzas, but I have divided it for your better understanding. So in the first slide where I have just explained the 4 lines, let me talk about the poetic devices. In the first 2 lines, we find the example of anaphora, as well as in the third and fourth line, we find the examples of anaphora, because both the first and second line begin with the word what, and third and fourth line begin with the same word merrily. So they are the examples of anaphora. Then what? The repetition is here, which is what. Now assonance. Boy now who has lost, the repetition of the vowel O. It is an example of assonance. Imagery. The imagery that is created when we can feel like the ball which is merrily bouncing down the street. It comes in front of our eyes as a visual imagery which is created by the poet with the use of his words. So this is for the first 4 lines of the poem. Now what will happen after this? What will the boy do? We will find out in the next slide. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball, is worthless. Now he senses first responsibility. Well, here the poet says that there is no use telling this boy that there are other balls, because this ball was precious to him. No other ball, however expensive, however beautiful, can replace it. It is this line has a deeper meaning in our life. The things that we hold close to our eyes, they can be people, they can be just material things. Now some of them are really irreplaceable. Once we lose them in the process of life and death, they are irreplaceable and we can never forget the loss. It keeps us haunting as long as we live. Now what happens to this boy? An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. The boy is fixed with a shaking grief. He is depressed. He is shocked. And it seems that he is fixed. He has become static. As he stands rigid, trembling, staring down, the loss is sudden and unexpected, and something which has given him a huge shock. It is something which has really shaken him to the core, and he stands trembling, staring down when his ball went bouncing down the street and finally ended up in the water. All his young days into the harbor where his ball went. And his ball was not only a toy, it was also the thing which contained the memories of his young days, his childhood, his lively, innocent childhood. And with the ball went all those young, carefree, and innocent days of childhood. And they all seemed to go away with the ball into the water. So now the boy has to become ready for a change. He has to become ready to undergo this pain of loss and separation. He has to understand that few things in life are there which are not going to stay with us forever. They are bound to be separated from us. And this is the first time the boy understands that he has moved one step ahead from his childhood, from being a toddler. And now he is experiencing a new thing in life, and that is the loss. That loss is in itself an experience, a novel experience to a little boy, because till this point he has never ever experienced any such thing, and suddenly it has doomed upon him. Now what does the poet do? I would not intrude on him, but the poet makes up his mind and says, I am not going to interfere in this feeling, in this situation that the boy is in. No, he is not going to go and sympathize with the boy, console him, make him understand. No, he is not going to do that. A dime, another ball is worthless. And he says a dime, a money, it's a amount, it's a currency unit. A dime, another ball is just worthless. It is useless. You cannot console the boy saying that I will give you money, or I will buy to buy a ball, or I'll buy a ball to you. No, these are useless consolations, because this ball has a lot of memories, but now they are just memories, because the boy has lost his ball and it is never going to come back to him. So what remains are the memories, and the memories with which the boy has to move in life. He has to proceed in life. Now he senses first responsibility. And now this is the first time he senses his responsibility. Responsibility of what? Responsibility of taking care of his belongings. Responsibility of taking care of the people or the things whom he holds dear to him, who are priceless to him. Responsibility is one of the greatest things that we have to bear, like a weapon in our life to go on struggling through the obstacles of life. If we are not responsible, we will never understand the value of things that we have, and we will only understand when we lose them. So it's better that we become responsible beforehand and we start taking care of the things that we have, and then only we can take care of them and try not to lose them. So this is the first time for this little boy that he understands that he has to take care of his things. He has to be responsible towards his belongings so that they are not separated from him, so that they are not lost away from him. This is the first time he understands that there is something in this world of which he has to take care of, and that is the thing which he holds close to him. So in this part of this poem, we understand that what happens, what is the effect of this sudden loss to the boy, and what does the poet think? How does the poet feel that what he should do? What to do with the boy? Should he console him, or should he not intrude in this situation? And he definitely chooses the second option. He doesn't intrude, because he wants the boy not to be not to be sympathized by someone else, but to understand that there are responsibilities in life which he has to shoulder himself. Now, in this particular slide, there are few poetic devices that I'm going to discuss. You can see on the very right hand side, ascendanton, where there is no use of conjunction in a sentence. Like a dime, another ball is worthless. They are just put into brief pauses with a comma. There is no use of any conjunction. Next is repetition. You can see I have marked with green all the poetic devices. Ball, it is being repeated. Then there is also an example of assonance in rigid, trembling, staring down, because there is a repetition of the vowel I. So let us move on to the next slide and see what comes next. Here in this stanza, the poet says, in a world of possessions, people will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing that every man must one day know, and most know many days, how to stand up. Now here the poet says that the boy has to learn that in this world that is so materialistic, many of his belongings will be lost. He personifies the ball as one of his belongings, be it the worldly thing or the relationships he possesses in future. So he says that the boy has to learn to live without them, no matter what is the situation, what the situation is. He even says that no one can buy things back. With this, the poet wants to tell that once a thing is lost from us, we cannot get it back. It is not always possible. The poet says so because, according to him, money can't buy everything. Money is external. It can buy things for you, but it cannot buy memories. It can buy the things that you say get in a shop, but it cannot buy love, affection, warmth, the emotional bonding that we have with people and things around us. For example, if you have your grandfather's watch with you, it is very precious to you children. Now, if you lose it, that doesn't mean that you will never be able to buy a watch again. You may buy a more expensive watch than that, but it will not be your grandfather's. It will not be the hub of the memories that are associated with your grandfather. So that is what the poet means to say here. He says that money is external. It can buy things, but it cannot replace memories. It cannot replace love, affection, and an emotional and sentimental tie. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss. And now when the little boy has lost, for the first time he has lost something in his life and something which is very close to him. He is slowly learning behind the desperate eyes, behind the eyes which are searching for the ball, which are desperate. He is learning the theory of loss, the knowledge that will teach him how to cope up with the loss that he will confront in his life. And how to stand up knowing what every man must one day know. And he will also know how to stand up and face these terrible realities of life which he has to confront later, and more terrible circumstances which he has to face in future. He has to stand up against them and confront them bravely, confront them with all the bravery and with all the responsibility. He has to understand, knowing that every man must one day know, and he should know this truth, this fact of life, which every man must one day know in his life, and most know many days, and most of the men know it, that life is all about loss and separation, and it is also about shouldering responsibilities and taking care of the things that we hold close to us. The harsh truth of standing up against the odd miseries of life that everyone has to bear is what the poet talks in this particular line. And this is what the poet also thinks about the little boy. After this incident of losing his ball, which went down away from him into the water, he will understand the knowledge. He will understand the theory of loss and separation that goes around in this world. And he will also understand the value of things, the things that only don't have the materialistic value, but the value with our very conscience, with our very mind, with our very soul. And that such things are irreplaceable, but again we have to cope up with them, we have to confront with such losses, and we have to stand up again in life. So in this poem, the poet talks about this beautiful meaning of life and change. Now in this particular stanza, which I have divided, not again I'm telling children, it is not divided in the book. I have divided it so that you can understand it in a better way. Now in these lines, there are few poetic devices which I have again set on the right hand side. You can see there is an example of alliteration in buys a ball back, because there is a repetition of the consonant B. It is an alliteration because B appears on the very first of each and every word. Then there is assonance. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. The repetition of the vowel sound E. Then there is a repetition of the word balls and also know. Every man must one day know, and most know many days. So there is a repetition of the word know. Well, to sum up, this poem can be interpreted both literally and metaphorically. If taken literally, it is a soulful picture of a little boy growing up and learning to deal with the loss of the first thing he has ever held dear to him, and that is his ball. If taken metaphorically, if we go into the deeper aspect of this poem, then it is the story of mankind learning to deal with the loss of their loved ones, which is inevitable. Right? The ball is a metaphor for everything that we think is irreplaceable in our lives. Obviously, anything irreplaceable is precious to us, priceless to us, and it is our sole responsibility to take care of those things. But sooner or later, every man must die, for man is a mortal creature. We can do nothing to stop this process, and hence it is something we must learn to deal with, something that we must cope up with, something that we must tolerate and confront. The loss of a loved one can spell a period of intense grief and depression for some of us. We can go into deep depression, grief. We can feel that the world has ended for us for quite some time. But it is not so, because time never waits for anybody, and time is the one which heals everything. So with time, people, we human beings, we understand this theory of loss and separation and try to cope up and stand up in life. However, the little boy realizes the theory of loss and change. The poet's message is that life goes on despite the loss we suffer in the form of losing our loved ones. And we also understand our responsibilities, and we understand that there are certain duties that we have to implement in life, that we have to carry forward in life. And we have to confront all the odds of life, the miseries of life, because life is an admixture of joy and sorrow. So if we have joys in our life, definitely we have sorrows as well. And we have to learn to deal with both. So this is the beautiful poem, the ball poem for you. I hope you understood it very well. I have already explained it in the GMeet session. But still, if you have any problem in the explanation anywhere, please let me know. That was all for today. Take care, stay safe. Thank you.